Star Wars is awesome.
Hello there.
You are part of the Rebel Alliance and a traitor. Take her away.
This is the way.
Sir, the possibility of successfully navigating an asteroid field is approximately 3,720 to 1.
Never tell me the odds.
Do or do not. There is no try.
He told me you killed him.
No. I am your father.
I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough and irritating, and it gets everywhere.
If you don't agree, fair enough, everyone's got different opinions. Hey guys, I'm Karl, welcome back to my movie film show. Feel free to subscribe down below if you would like to, but we're here today to talk about Star Wars. More succinctly, the animated Star Wars shows, because you need to watch these animated shows if you love Star Wars, or even if you don't love Star Wars and you're only getting into Star Wars, these animated shows, they need to be watched because they're truly some of the best parts of Star Wars. Just recently, they announced a load of new shows and movies in Star Wars, one of which is Ahsoka. And this is going to be one of the greatest TV shows. It's a TV show, isn't it? And this is going to be one of the best parts of Star Wars, in my opinion. That's what I'm expecting. And why am I expecting that? Because I watched Star Wars Rebels. And Star Wars Rebels is phenomenal. It's one of the best pieces of Star Wars. There's some great characters in there. Some great relationships between the characters are built up throughout. Ahsoka appears as well.
My name is Ahsoka Tano.
Spoiler alert, Darth Maul appears as well. There's a lot of story elements within Rebels that just comes together and makes it a fantastic show. And now in Ahsoka, they released a trailer quite recently, and here is some of the footage I'm going to put up on screen. These characters you're seeing: Chopper, the little droid; Sabine Wren, one of the coolest characters in Star Wars; Harrison Dula, again, one of the best characters in Star Wars; and Ezra Bridger, at least a hologram of Ezra Bridger. We don't know if Ezra Bridger is going to be fully in it. If he is, it's pretty damn cool, and if you've seen Star Wars Rebels, you know why it's pretty damn cool. Also, recently in The Mandalorian Season 3, which I'm loving at the minute, we got a cameo from Zeb, another one of the characters from Star Wars Rebels. All these characters are coming to live action, and if you haven't seen Star Wars Rebels, you might be a little bit confused as to who they are and why they're so important. Now, I began watching Star Wars Rebels immediately after finishing the Clone Wars, and I stopped watching it. I couldn't watch more than 2 or 3 episodes because the art style was so different, it was a little bit jarring at first. So I took a couple of weeks break, and then I went back to Rebels, and I was so glad that I did that. I gave it a second chance because it became one of my favorite parts of Star Wars. The characters are so well developed, the stories are so well told, and I just kept finding myself wanting to see more and more and more. And there's so many teases within The Mandalorian towards Rebels as well. I mentioned Zeb's there, part at the beginning where Grogu's looking around through hyperspace and he sees some things that are only, you only figure out or you only know about if you've seen Star Wars Rebels. Then, as I mentioned, the Clone Wars was the first thing that I really got into animated-wise in Star Wars. And it was years ago when the Clone Wars animated series began. It was even a movie first. It's set between episode 2 and 3. And it really fills in a lot of details within Star Wars. Especially fills in the character of Anakin. Hayden Christensen recently said he owes that show a lot for making his character more loved within the Star Wars universe. We see a lot more of the relationship between Obi-Wan and Anakin than we do in the movies. A lot of the questions you have after episode 2 and episode 3 are answered in both Clone Wars and Rebels and the Bad Batch, which we're going to talk about later on. But again, a lot of characters pop up in the Clone Wars that you wouldn't know about if you only watched the live actions or the main line of movies. For example, in the Book of Boba Fett, one of the coolest characters in all of Star Wars pops up, Cad Bane. Cad Bane is a bounty hunter who pops up frequently in the Clone Wars, and he constantly gets away. He's constantly shown to be a badass, and even the Jedi can't catch him. He's a mercenary for hire. He's only playing for himself for the most part. He's no trouble taking money off the bad guys, and he somehow always finds a way to escape and always finds a way to get the job done. So when he popped up in the Book of Boba Fett, when I saw him in live action for the first time, I saw him walking into the scene. I said, things are about to kick off now. This show's about to go up a whole other level. But on top of that, the biggest one herself is Ahsoka. Ahsoka doesn't feature in any of the main movies. Any of the main, first 6 movies. Forget about the 3 that came after that. They don't exist in my mind. But Ahsoka, by far, is the best Star Wars character. Her story is so different, it's so original, it's so unique. You see her grow all the way from being a young Padawan at the beginning, and if you go through all the shows, we're getting up to Ahsoka in itself, you see her being not quite a Jedi, but certainly a powerful entity in herself within Star Wars. It's really cool getting to see Ahsoka's journey, her connection with Anakin at the beginning, what happens during Order 66 from a different point of view, her connection to some of the clones and what happens when they turn on her during Order 66, how she's survives Order 66. All these things are so damn cool. And then you've got the clones in themselves. The clones in the Clone Wars, you become more attached to some of the characters. You learn about more of the characters. And then that continues on to the point where later on in something like the Bad Batch, you find out what happened to the clones who even stayed behind during Order 66 with the Empire. How did we transfer from having clones to having real people in the helmets? As I mentioned, all these little questions that pop up after the movies, after episode 6, or episode 3 even. All these questions you have after the movies are filled in these animated shows. And as I mentioned, the Bad Batch, they feature in the Clone Wars at one point in one really cool episode. There are basically a lot of clones that went wrong in the clone making process, but to their betterment. They all kind of have superpowers. One of them super strong, one of them super smart, one of them's good at technology. He's called Tech. So, you know, they're unique with the names. And again, the Bad Batch, I started watching it when it first came out, and I didn't enjoy it. I didn't enjoy the first couple episodes, but I went back a couple of months later and I was so glad that I did, because recently I just finished season 2, I believe it is, and I couldn't stop watching. I couldn't wait for the episodes to come out week by week by week. It even came out during Mandalorian starting out, season 3, and I always wanted to watch the Bad Batch first because so much cool stuff was happening in it. And again, characters pop up in the Bad Batch that were in the Clone Wars or that were in Rebels, and it's really cool integration across all 3. But now, as I mentioned, with Ahsoka coming soon, all these characters are now transferring into live action, and you have the backstory from them from the animated shows, which just makes the live action shows more enjoyable. I wasn't one of the people that hated the Book of Boba Fett. I don't think it was the best Star Wars show, but I certainly enjoyed it a lot more with the likes of Cad Bane popping up in it. And even in the Clone Wars, this might drag you into watching the Clone Wars, we get more information about Darth Maul, because did you know that Darth Maul did not die in the Phantom Menace? I'm not going to tell you more than that. I'm not going to spoil it any more than that. But if you want to know more about that, you need to watch the Clone Wars and Rebels, because it all takes place within those shows. If you watch these shows, you will get a hell of a lot more out of Star Wars. And you might be one of these people that says, Karl, I'm a grown-ass man or a grown-ass woman or whatever you are nowadays. I don't watch animation. I'm a grown-up. Well, to that I say, bollocks. Animation is for everybody. It's one of the coolest mediums in the world. It's one of the toughest forms of filmmaking, and it's a medium for storytelling which is super creative. You can do things in animation you just simply can't do in live action, or is much harder to pull off in live action. Even an iconic director like Guillermo del Toro recently said,
animation is cinema. Animation is not a genre, and animation is ready to be taken to the next step. We are all ready for it. Please help us. Keep animation in the conversation.
I've got such an appreciation for animation because I've seen people do animation down the years. I know how much blood, sweat and tears goes into it, how much passion goes into it, and it really shines through in shows like this. Now, another criticism that I've labelled towards Marvel in the past is there's too many shows and you have to follow everything to keep in, to keep in touch with it. And there's simply too much going on with Marvel to keep a hold of. At one point there's new movies and shows every month and you simply have to keep up with every one of them or else you'd be out of the loop. I haven't watched anything since Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, and I know I'm completely behind in the MCU now. Probably will never catch up with it. And that's definitely a criticism I label towards Marvel, and you could possibly label that towards Star Wars with this, but you don't have to watch all the stuff. You can still enjoy the Star Wars stuff individually, but if you watch the animated shows, you'll get so much more out of the live action stuff. Especially with Ahsoka coming, I think it's vital to watch Rebels, know who the characters are, and fall in love with them. And the end of Star Wars Rebels, I believe it's season 4, it's such a phenomenal cliffhanger. And also, we're about to get one of the coolest bad guys in Star Wars. I'm mentioning so many characters being so cool.
Admiral Constantine.
Grand Admiral Thrawn.
Thrawn, he's the next big bad guy, and you'll get his origins within Star Wars Rebels. Maybe not his origins, but you certainly get a feel for the character. And regardless of the story elements and the characters being cool, they're just really good shows. You'll get a hell of a lot of enjoyment out of them. If you're looking for a new show to watch, I can't recommend Clone Wars, Rebels, or The Bad Batch highly enough. There's also Tales of the Jedi, which also some small episodes that fill in details for like Count Dooku and even Ahsoka when she was very, very young, and they're also pretty cool too. So if you haven't watched any of the animated Star Wars shows, now is the perfect time to start right after this video. Unless you want to watch more of my videos, which is pretty damn cool. And if you want to hit that subscribe button, that'd be great too. And I'll catch you in the next video.